All right, welcome to the Pomodoro Technique, where we're going to make productivity a priority today. And since this is an entire session on productivity, we're going to go ahead and get started right on time. So anybody that's not able to make it can definitely catch the replay. We're going to be sharing this with a couple of different audiences, and it'll be available probably by later today. So my name is Tracy Sinich, and I am a bit of a productivity guru. Today during this webinar, we're going to cover a couple of different things pretty quickly, and then we've got other resources if you want to dive deeper with any of them. We're going to talk about what productive work is. So for a lot of people, they think about trying to get a whole lot of stuff done, and that might mean a big long to-do list. It might mean clearing the email log, but productive work can mean a lot of different things for different folks. So we're going to define what it's going to mean for the topics of this webinar and dive into how do you really then develop the tools and mindset that you need to be more productive. I'm a big fan of productivity tools. As an entrepreneur for over a decade, I'm going on about 15 years, it is essential that we use our time wisely. I mean, in many cases, you can leverage credit cards or loans or income or whatever you might need to kind of fund your business or to delegate tasks or to purchase things that you need to. But time is that one commodity that we can never buy more of. You cannot create it, you cannot buy it, you cannot duplicate or clone yourself. So if your business is dependent upon you, if you're a speaker or a coach or any type of business where you're front and center, then your time is really one of your biggest commodities, and productivity tools and tips can kind of help us maximize that and get the most out of it. The tool we're going to talk about specifically today is called the Pomodoro Technique. So we're going to dive into exactly what that means, how you can implement and use it, and even some tools and resources that'll help you kind of begin to put this into place in your business. And then we're going to talk a little bit about interval work, which is kind of the core concept for Pomodoro. And then hopefully by the end of all of this, you can jump right into getting a couple of these tools, putting them into place, and really starting to make the most out of your day. So like I said, I'm Tracy Sinich. I run a business called Mentoring You. And for the last 15 years, I have been working with women-based entrepreneurs who wanted to either create their own business, pursue a passion project. They were kind of encore careerists. Maybe they were leaving a long career in corporate work and then wanted to open up their own business. And I do a lot of different things as a part of Mentoring You. So I do mind mapping and brainstorming and helping people kind of figure out where these gaps in productivity and efficiencies are. I help them implement technology and tools, automation procedures, different things like that to automate and really kind of get the most out of their day. And then I also do a little bit of creative work on the side where I build websites and kind of help implement some of these solutions for different folks. But my philosophy as a whole is really that efficiency can be learned. You're not either born efficient or not efficient. You can learn to be efficient. It is definitely something that we can put into place in our business and then really get the most out of, regardless of whether or not it's our natural instinct. So I have been working for a really long time on bringing together all of the different tips and tools and resources that I give to clients into what I call the Efficient Entrepreneur series. So this is a little bit of that. It's a little tease out of some of the core content in that method. And these are kind of tips and tools that I have used and I have helped clients use to run their business and really make the most of their work. I started out in the corporate world years ago, and if you've spent any time in the corporate world, there's a lot of divisions of labor. We have people over marketing, or we have people over accounting. Everybody kind of has their place and they have their tasks and they go to work and they do them, and we can be fairly efficient that way because we've divided up all of the labor into these categories. When we become an entrepreneur, we start to wear all of those hats. So all of a sudden, you have to do the marketing and the accounting and the emails and the sales and the IT tech support for yourself if you haven't hired it out. And you've got to manage all of these different components. And what tends to happen is we gravitate to the ones that we really like. So if you really like sales and marketing, or if you really like content creation, that's where you spend the bulk of your time. And then all those tasks that need to get done, but they're not your favorite, they kind of fall by the wayside, and we don't do them as rapidly or as productively or as efficiently as we really could. So what we're looking at here is how do we find a little bit more balance? How do we run our business efficiently, doing all those tasks, regardless of whether or not they're our favorites, but in an efficient and an effective manner? So we're going to start with, how do you define productive work? So productive work, what makes your day productive? When you think about how you spend your day, do you start out in the morning with a big long to-do list and crossing off all of those items makes you feel productive? Do you have certain tasks that have deadlines, maybe client deliverables or things that you have to accomplish by certain deadlines? And days when you get those done, you feel productive. Days when you don't, you feel like you're spinning your wheels. Is it a financial goal? Are you looking at, if by the end of the week I have met with this many clients, have this many leads, closed this many deals, that's productive. Like there's my return. For every business, there's wiggle room here, right? There's no one fits all size approach. So what we really need to identify is within your business, what would define productivity? Would you really, and then maybe just jot that down right now. Because if productivity is a financial goal for you, then we need to back that out a certain way. We need to identify the steps, the leads, the calls, all the things we need to do to make sure we're hitting that financial goal. If productivity for you is not working a 10-hour day and it's being able to run your business efficiently and effectively in 6 hours or less so that you can go on and have some work-life balance because that's why you started your business, that's a different style of productivity. Then we really need to leverage some tools and automation to kind of get you in the right place. Regardless of what it is that helps you define productive work, for the purposes of today's call, we're really going to focus on productive work is getting the maximum return on your investment for the time that you're putting in. So if you're sitting down and you want to work for 4 to 6 hours today, we want to make sure that at the end of those 4 to 6 hours, when you walk away, you've done tasks that are moving you closer to your final goals. So you didn't get sucked into social media for 4 hours and manage to crank out one blog post. We want to see something that is really going to have a return on your investment. And the reason that this is so important is because a big part of interval work and the Pomodoro Technique and some of these pieces we're getting into now is going to be a focus on particular tasks. So you need to have an idea of what tasks you're going to accomplish before you sit down. So just kind of be mulling that over and thinking about what makes productivity really matter to you? Like what makes this make sense to you? And then how do you work best? Do you work best off a list of tasks? Do you need help defining that list? Really kind of diving into what does productivity mean? So about 18% of the time, our brain is wandering when we're trying to concentrate. And the reason that statistic is appearing in this webinar and the reason that I find it so fascinating is because Pomodoro Technique is a short, focused burst of creativity and focus where you're going to spend a small amount of time in a very short window trying to get a single task done. And the reason that we do that is because our brain tends to wonder if we try to continue working on something in a focused way for too long. So if you've ever sat down to write a paper or write an email or write a series of emails, maybe you're trying to clear your email log and you get through a couple of them and then you think, oh, I should go check social media. Or you're trying to do a whole bunch of lead phone calls where you're just kind of going through all of your phone calls and following up and clearing your voicemail. And halfway through it, you decide, oh, you know what? I really need to hop over here and do something else. That might feel like you're just being a little bit scattered and distracted, but what's really happening is your brain has gotten bored with the task that you're doing. And you're doing that task and it's kind of repetitive and you're working your way through it. But at some point, your brain is looking for a little extra stimulation. And so it's trying to drive you in a different direction, have you do something else to kind of keep it engaged. But from a productivity standpoint, what's happening is all of a sudden you're off the rails. You were kind of working in a good direction, kind of getting stuff done. And now your brain's tricking you into going in a different direction and you're leaving that first task unfinished. So with the Pomodoro Technique here, we can really start to look at who it works best for. whoops, and I skipped ahead there for you, who this really works best for. So entrepreneurs, this is a great strategy for entrepreneurs. Like I said, you wear a lot of different hats. You've got to get through a lot of different tasks. So when we talk about how to stay focused, with entrepreneurs, we're really looking at, can we break out our workday? And I actually have a great freebie that I can email around for anybody that would like it, but it kind of breaks down an entrepreneur's week. And I actually batch, certain tasks on certain days. So I focus on my email and my email marketing on one day. I focus on my social media marketing and planning one day. I focus on my accounting one day. And it's not all day, but those tasks are kind of my key priority tasks broken down across the week on each of those days. And what that allows you to really do is to come in and say, all right, if I need to make a list of all the things that are really going to be effective and productive for me, then today, headlining that is going to be creating my email marketing. I've got other things I need to do, and I'm going to get to those as well. But today is going to be productive because I knocked out this email marketing for the week. And so for entrepreneurs who really wear a lot of different hats and they move in a lot of different directions, this can be a great way to focus yourself and make sure that you're focusing on all aspects of your business. If you're still in the corporate world, productivity, it can be derailed by so many different things. It can be derailed by people popping into your office to ask you questions. It can be derailed by people who, have deliverables that come into you that are all of a sudden top of the list, super urgent. When I used to work in consulting and corporate work, we would have this happen all the time where, you kind of have your plan and you know what you're going to be working on. And then all of a sudden there's a fire drill and someone needs something right now, right away. And everything else kind of falls to the wayside. So when you leverage productivity strategies in a corporate environment, you can really start to work in these short focus bursts and knock out some of your mainstream tasks, but also specifically delegate small amounts of time to these fire drills so that they don't necessarily derail everything that you are already doing. And then the last category of people that I have on here that are really will benefit from something like a productivity tool are just those who are distractible. And I think at some point we all fall into this category, but if you know that your working style is multitasking, people to people, you'd rather take a phone call than sit on the computer, and you're much more likely to be distractible. You don't shut off those distractions and don't have that kind of just kind of commitment to shut off those distractions. Then tools like Pomodoro and the techniques we're going to talk about today will really help you use your strengths to work in very short bursts and then give yourself breaks where you can allow yourself to be distracted and stay on task. So my definition of productive work, and so hopefully you've kind of been thinking about yours, but my definition of productive work is work done versus hours put in. I want to work fewer hours, but I want to see bigger results. So for me, that means that I really want to accomplish more in a shorter amount of time. I am committed to shutting off my email, shutting off my phone, working hard in a very short amount of time because I don't want to be working all hours. And I would rather have more intense bursts of work than longer drawn out, more relaxed bursts of work. So I spend more time focused on results than I do on hours. And this was a big shift coming out of the corporate world where I think there's a lot of emphasis on how many hours are you working, and you have so many hours a day to kind of get work done. Whereas when you move into the entrepreneur world, many of us do that because we want the flexibility of schedule. And so if you're used to clocking a certain number of hours, maybe it didn't kind of rise to the top as quickly how you were spending your time. But most entrepreneurs are working far more than they intended to, and yet are still feeling overwhelmed and stressed. My goal really was to kind of flip that. I wanted to work a little bit less than I had been in the past, and I wanted to be more productive in that time frame so that I could accomplish more. And then as we look at this, a lot of what I'm talking about might include changing your mindset. So depending on what you're already thinking about productivity and how you view productivity, maybe this was a little bit of a shift in the mindset. If productivity to you was working 8 hours, crossing off your list, leaving and coming back the next day to kind of a clean slate and starting over, maybe it's a little bit of a shift to say, let's kind of really batch this work. Like, let's not do email marketing every day of the week. Let's not do social media every day of the week. Let's really focus these into small batches so that you can plan ahead and you can maybe get to a point where you do social media marketing once a month or once every 3 months. One of the programs that I kind of frequently walk my clients through and that I've been running for years through Mentoring You is called Marketing Content Wizard. And that program kind of takes some of these techniques that we're talking about today and really puts them into action, in that we spend 3 days in a focused effort to create 90 days worth of social media content. So by the time we're done with our 3-day marathon, content for 90 days is planned, scheduled, written, illustrated, and scheduled in a system to roll out and post on autopilot. So if you schedule your social media on a daily basis and you're always feeling stressed about, have I posted and what do I need to say? I mean, you can just kind of imagine the relief that that gives a lot of entrepreneurs when they can look ahead and know they've been productive over these 3 days that probably were a little intense, but now they're all set for the next 3 months. So when we talk about changing your mindset, it's really thinking big picture. If I were to batch some of this work, if I were to put some of these tools in place, what might that mean to my business? Like, is it worth this learning curve to really kind of get to that point where I can breathe a little easier, I'm a lot less stressed, and I don't feel overwhelmed by the tasks that are in front of me? So the Pomodoro Technique is all about everything we've been talking about here, creating short, focused bursts of productive work. And how do we do that? So the way that it works is you want to identify the task at hand. So for instance, maybe, and we're talking a single task. So maybe it is, I'm going to answer all of my emails in my email log from customers that have come in. And maybe you haven't done that for a very long time. So maybe that's a very big task that's not accomplishable in a small amount of time, but you would just repeat this process until you had cleared it. So you would identify the task at hand, and we'll use answering my emails as an example. You would use a Pomodoro timer or a kitchen timer or a timer on your phone, set it to 25 minutes, and then you would work just on that one task until your 25-minute timer goes off. And when it does, you take a 5-minute break. And for every round of this, every 4 rounds, every 4 Pomodoros, 4 25-minute sections, then you take a longer break, like a 15 to 20-minute break. And when I say take a break, I usually encourage clients that I am working with to leave the computer at first while you are getting used to the system. So literally you work for 25 minutes, then get up and stretch your legs. Take a quick walk, grab a drink of water, make a cup of coffee, whatever it might be, but leave the computer for those 5 minutes, let your brain relax. And then when you come back and you start your next 25-minute segment, you're fresh. You didn't just kind of switch to social media where you scrolled for 5 minutes and you've never really left the computer. And those longer breaks are great for, kind of maybe getting a chore done, answering a phone call, checking your email, like switching gears a little bit. So if we break that down a little bit more, and kind of as we do this, I want to talk you through some of the tools that we use. Picking that one task to focus on for 25 minutes can sometimes be the hardest piece because you have a to-do list of things to do. So identifying tasks, at least in the beginning, when you're getting used to this, that are accomplishable. If you sit down and your task is, I'm going to create all of my marketing for the next month, it's probably going to feel overwhelming. It's probably going to take you multiple rounds of a Pomodoro to knock out, and you're probably not going to feel like you're seeing the benefits quite as much. Whereas if you were to say, I'm going to sit down and write my next 2 email posts that are going to go out on my email marketing, that might be a bit more accomplishable. So kind of think about that as you're picking your tasks to focus on. Also pick tasks that are going to give you a return on your investment. So for instance, if I was going to do research for an upcoming article, then I could probably by the end of my 25 minutes have 1 or 2 references, some good text to pull in on my next blog article that I'm writing, and I would have actually spent that time in a way that showed me results. If I was choosing to spend that 25 minutes creating social media graphics, then by the end of the 25 minutes, I would hopefully have something to show for it. I would actually have the social media graphics to show for it. If you're spending your 25 minutes researching competitors on social media and you're hopping on social media and you're scrolling, you would have to be very disciplined in that regard, because you would likely get sucked into a Facebook feed or an Instagram feed that would distract you. And by the end of the 25 minutes, you might feel like you actually didn't get anything done. So while you're getting used to the process, be specific and intentional about what you're picking to focus on. Block out all your distractions. Put your phone on silent for the 25 minutes, shut off notifications on your desktop. If you know that you have a tendency to hop around, like I'm gonna hop over to Pinterest to grab an example for this article, but you know you're likely to get lost in Pinterest, then some of the tools that we're gonna show you here in just a minute with the Pomodoro timers actually have built-in distraction blockers. They will block all non-essential websites. Like you can actually say, I'm going to be researching tasks on Google, but block Pinterest, Facebook, all these other pieces, so that it literally will, if you accidentally try to pop over into one of those websites, a screen will pop up and say, wait for your 5-minute break to go to this site. And it'll just give you that little reminder to stay focused. There is a little bit of a learning curve with this, kind of training your brain to do these 25-minute intense little interval work sessions. And so you may need a little bit of help with that in the beginning. Then focus on accomplishing that one task. So again, send all the emails, write the blog, crank out the graphics. If you have trouble with any of this, if all of this is sounding like there's no way I can get multiple emails or could write a blog post or could create 20 social media graphics in 20 minutes, then definitely start lower on the expectations. And feel free to reach out. Like, these are tools that I help people put into place. I'm on social media. I'm always happy to give advice and kind of help you with kind of leveraging your time in the best way. The next point is super important. When the timer goes off, stop, no matter what. You might be in the middle of a sentence. You might feel like you're in a great groove and you don't want to stop, but you have to stop. When you're very first getting started with this, the whole point is to not overstay our creativity. So we want to work hard for that 25 minutes, but then at some point after that, and maybe it's at minute 26 or 28 or 32, at some point after that, your brain is going to wander. And we don't want to miss that window. So in the beginning, when we are first learning this technique and we're kind of putting it into place and we're expecting a lot of ourselves from a productivity standpoint, when that timer goes off, stop. Stand up, walk away, take your 5-minute break, and then come back. I know it might feel a little counterintuitive if you feel like you're in the groove, but it really does work. And then when your break is up, the timers that I'll recommend and show you in just a second will play a little noise. When you hear that noise and the timer's up, either go back to the same task if you are still working on it. So if you're still cranking out social media graphics, hop right back into it. Or if you finish that task, pick the next one on your list and move on. For a lot of people who do this, they consider 4 to 6 Pomodoro sessions a day to be an incredibly productive day. So if you're new to this kind of discipline with task management, you can start as big or as small as you like. You could Pomodoro your entire day, or you could start with 1 or 2 first thing in the morning when you know you're most productive, and then kind of cut yourself some slack while you're easing into it and spend the rest of the day like you normally have. Either way, you're leveling up your productivity from where you have been in the past. So I keep referencing all of these great tools that can help you do this. And so there's a few on the screen. There's lots more than this, but these are a few of my favorites, and I'll tell you why. Marinara, a Pomodoro Assistant, is one that I personally use. It is a very, very simple Chrome web store extension. It pops up into the URL bar, bookmark bar of your Chrome browser, and it's a tiny little tomato, and when you click it, it starts a 25-minute countdown, When the 25 minutes is up, it pops up a screen that says take a short break. You click the button, it starts your 5 minutes. And when it's done, it says get back to focusing. You click it and it starts back up. Very, very simple. Minimal distractions, no major software, 100% free, and super low tech. The downfall would be on this one, if you need something where you're inputting your task, or you do need some of those distraction blockers that we talked about, where it's going to not let you go to certain websites, or not let you go search social media or something. This one is pretty lean, so it's not going to include some of those bells and whistles. The Pomodoro tracker is pretty straightforward. This one is available on your computer, on your phones, web and desktop based. And it's also pretty straightforward. It's got a giant tomato. You click it, the tracker's going to start. This one has a little bit more bells and whistles and is also not web-based. So if you do a lot of work that is not on the web and you do a lot that's on your desktop and you want to leverage this for that, this might be a great tool to try. Toggle is one where if you do a lot of client work and you have to track your time and then you invoice based on time spent, Toggle actually is a Chrome extension that can run like Pomodoro and includes time tracking. So it can be very, very beneficial, because if you're using these Pomodoros per client, maybe you're going to work on one client stuff for 25 minutes and then switch to another, it can make that process very simple for you. And then Tide is really interesting, because if you're someone who needs white noise or certain music, or you kind of respond to that auditory stimulation, Tide is a phone app that does the Pomodoro time tracking, but also has white noise capability. So you can click it and it can kind of play white noise while you're focusing. It's available on your phone and on the web. Like I said, there's lots and lots more. I've tried tons of these out. I'll send out a list in a follow-up to the webinar today with some of my favorites, including these, and links so that you can find them. But there's lots out there. So the Pomodoro Technique has been around for a really long time, and there's a lot of different tools with various bells and whistles due to that. It's really a matter of finding the right fit for you. So this works, again, by creating a sense of urgency. So if you've ever had a deadline where you feel like, you know, I'll be honest, I'm this kind of person myself. I work best when I have a deadline. So all of those tasks that are ongoing tasks that I know I need to work on, but they don't really have to get done right now, tend to fall to the bottom of my list. That includes my email marketing. So I'm the world's worst at sending out emails. It is something that I have chosen to outsource at this point in my business, because I know that I am never going to give it the attention it deserves to be productive on it on a good timetable. There's no sense of urgency for me. However, when I'm working with my clients' deadlines and dates and times always have a sense of urgency. So they always rise to the top of my list and make me more productive. So Pomodoro tries to simulate that sense of urgency for whatever task is at hand. So you're given 25 minutes to attempt to complete a task. Most studies show that our best work is done in 20 minutes or less. You know, you write your best paragraphs, you do your best phone calls, you create your best graphics. All of that happens in these short bursts when our brain is forced into high creative and high productivity mode. So Pomodoro looks to recreate that and leverage that in order to get more done. So the only thing I'm going to warn you against here is if Pomodoro is making you anxious, then you do need to reset your mindset. Like, this is a tool, nothing else. So it definitely is not intended to make anybody hyperventilate, but it's encouraged to kind of help you get those engines firing and really dive in and get a project accomplished and done. So with this, we can do a couple of different things. We can answer more emails, we can respond to more messages, you can have more time for you. When we get back to those conversations we were having earlier in the webinar, where we were thinking about, what does productive work mean to you? What is a productive day? Does it mean not having to work at night to answer more emails? Does it mean there's a tool in place that's already responding to messages on Facebook Messenger and your website, answering basic questions so you don't have to? And did we need to just kind of spend the time up front to build that? Does it mean that you're not working 70 hours a week? You're working 35 because you're having these very productive bursts of time. So I like to be intentional about everything that I do in business and everything that I recommend clients do. Really spend just a little bit of time soul searching and figuring out, what would this mean? Tools are only something that we should put into place if they're going to help us. So the Pomodoro Technique is not something you should put into place if it's one more thing on your list that you have to learn or do. It's something you should put into place if it'll take things off your list, if it will make things happen for you and make you more productive and more efficient and lead you down that path to your end goals. So interval work, I personally feel like will really rock your world. So I think I mentioned this earlier, our time is one of our most precious commodities as entrepreneurs. Like, we really have less of that than we have just about anything else. And we want to make the most of getting the most out of that time that we're spending. So first step would be to try out the Pomodoro Technique. Start with a 20-minute focused or a 25-minute focus session and a 5-minute short break. Try one the first day, see what happens. If you are really blown away by how much you knock out, try 2 the next day and kind of build from there. Once you have done that and you're ready to take it to the next step, these are a few of my other favorite productivity techniques. And this is kind of the order that I do them in. So each day I start my day with a top 3 list. I look at the 3 things that are going to make the biggest impact to my day. Is it going to be making client phone calls and locking in new clients? Is it going to be sending out an email because I have a new product launch coming? Whatever it is, I look at the top 3 things that if I get those 3 things done, today was a success. Everything else is just icing on the cake. So I make that list. Then, if you're familiar with the productivity world, Eat Your Frog is kind of it's a book and a productivity technique that's been floating around for a while, but it means tackle the thing you want to do the least first. So if you are dreading invoicing clients because you just do not like your bookkeeping, do it first. Knock it out, take it off your plate. Everything will be easier after you do that. And then I use Pomodoro to do those things. So I use a 25-minute Pomodoro at the beginning of the day to create my top 3 list and plan my day. I use a 25-minute Pomodoro to eat my frog, get my worst piece out of the way. And then I use it 2 to 3 more times to get other tasks done before I typically call it a day. And then as we're kind of wrapping up today, I just want to leave you with a couple of thoughts. 35% of entrepreneurs work 50 to 59 hours per week and still feel overwhelmed. If that is you, productivity solutions can help. And 38% of employees believe that teamwork is important in the first place. So I will say this statistic really caught my eye because I think so many entrepreneurs leave the corporate world and go to work solo. And part of that feeling overwhelmed and working all the time is because they don't have some of the interactions that they used to have with teamwork. So my recommendations here are, A, if you're one of these people working 50 to 59 hours per week and feeling overwhelmed, put some productivity solutions in place. And if you're one of these people who believe that teamwork is important and you're feeling overwhelmed, find an accountability partner, join a Facebook group, reach out to the people virtually or in person who are in a similar place and really develop some of those peer-to-peer relationships so you get a little bit of that water cooler chat that kind of was a social relaxation point in your workday previously and maybe is not there anymore. And then the average entrepreneur spends 68.1% of their time working in their business, tackling day-to-day tasks, putting out fires, working on email, reaching out to clients, but only 32% of the time working on their business, doing things like long-term goals and strategic planning. Now, what I will tell you from my perspective is if you start to put productivity tools into place, this will start to shift because the time you will need to spend working in your business on day-to-day tasks, sending emails, posting content, that is going to get streamlined and that's really going to start to reduce. When you have more time to spend on long-term goals and strategic planning, you are really able to start looking at scaling your business, hiring in help, growing to a new level. And that is when we really start to see the success that we envisioned when we became entrepreneurs. So all of this content that we have been talking about with productivity is leading in this direction. The goal is to help you work more on your business, strategic, long-term planning, making sure that the tasks that you're doing are leading you in the direction of how you define success at the end of the day. And then just to wrap up, plan first. So this is just another little kind of revision of that graphic I was showing earlier. Plan first. I spend 10 to 12 minutes every morning making my top 3 list and then figuring out what I need to do. Studies from the Eat the Frog book actually show that if you will spend just 10 to 12 minutes, you will save yourself up to 2 hours of wasted time and effort. If you have a plan and a strategic list of a couple of items that you need to get accomplished, and then you focus specifically on those so that your day is productive and efficient from the very beginning, you will save yourself hours of wasted time. 2 hours of wasted time and effort a day times 5 days a week, that's 10 hours. You could take Friday off. Interval work really does work. So productivity drops when people try to do more than one thing at once. So when you start multitasking, your productivity does naturally drop, which is why tools like the Pomodoro Technique can really help you, because you're spending a small amount of time on a single task and knocking it out before moving on to the next one. You can get just as much done, a lot more done, than you did when you thought you were multitasking well. And then make your work count. 20% of the average workday is spent on important and crucial things that actually have an ROI, they pay you back, they accomplish sales, while 80% of your workday is often spent on things that don't have any value. Social media is one of the best examples of this. We all feel like we have to be on social media. We feel like we have to have a social media presence. We're having to put out posts. You have to do that daily to kind of keep up with the level of marketing that is going out from everyone else. However, if you step back and look, how many of your sales are coming in off of social media? How many of your new leads are coming in off social media? Is the amount of time that you're spending on social media equivalent to the amount of return that you're getting versus the amount of time that you're spending on phone calls out to new leads or emails directly out to new leads versus the return on that? So be strategic with your time. And then I, just kind of keep summing these up, but this will be in the recap that everybody will get. Start with a plan, identify those top 3, delegate if possible. This next one, tech tools can help. I'm a huge fan of this. So I run webinars frequently on different tools that can help you, different ways to automate your business or put tech tools in place. Sometimes I have conversations with clients who don't even use accounting systems yet. They literally just still maintain things on Excel spreadsheets. And they invoice every client individually, building that invoice each time. If you're at that level, there are tools that can help. If you're past that and you're running, in a fairly efficient business, are you leveraging things like automated welcome emails, e-commerce follow-ups, integrations that take your data from point A to point B so you're not manually moving it? So taking a little bit of time to look at the tech tools that can help can really take some of those day-to-day pieces off of your plate and allow you to free yourself up for longer-term planning. Never forget that 80-20 rule. This is so important. I actually have it up on the wall in front of me at work so that I never forget about it. But 80% of your results come from 20% of the efforts. So be sure that 20%, those top 3 things that you're working on, that those are key to your business. And then interval work, keep that up. Put all of your marketing into place. To look at a schedule. Does it make sense to market on Monday, tackle client calls on Tuesday, work through social media on Wednesday? Does it make sense to kind of have a plan like that for your business so that you can focus specifically on these things that you need to run your business successfully, but you can focus on all of them equally instead of just gravitating to the ones that you really like? And then if this webinar was interesting to you, there are more coming. So the Efficient Entrepreneur Method is really all about identifying that kind of mind mapping, thinking about what makes you productive, learning how to batch and schedule and automate your content, your processes, really putting things into place to where you can be efficient with the operation of your business so that you can move on to doing what you really love. If you launched your business because you really loved paperwork, this probably isn't for you. But if you launched your business because you love your product and you're passionate about working with people, then the time that you're spending on paperwork is probably wasted time. So there's courses that are included in the Efficient Entrepreneur Method. We'll be having things like calendar control, batching your business. Productivity Perfection kind of focuses a little bit more in depth on a lot of the different tools we talked about today. And then the one-day side hustle really gets into, especially if you or someone that you know is trying to leave a 9-to-5 job and they're trying to do a job on the side, how do we really streamline that enough that you can do most of the tasks to run that business in a single day? It's really kind of a jam-packed Saturday, but if you need a Saturday side hustle, then there's tools to help you kind of get that into place. So I really hope this was helpful. I hope you are excited to go out and look for information on the Pomodoro Technique or download one of those timers and put them into place. And if you do, I would absolutely love to hear from you. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/mentoringyou. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram, and you're welcome to email me directly because I would love to hear how this is working out for you. Thanks for joining. I appreciate it.